What are the main ethnicities in Afghanistan and how are they dispersed?
There are four main ethnicities in Afghanistan: Pashtun, Tajik, Hazara, and Uzbek. The Pashtuns are from Afghanistan and Pakistan, the Tajik are from Tajikistan, the Hazara are from a mountainous region known as the Hazarajat, and the Uzbek are mainly from Uzbekistan. However, most of these groups mainly reside within Afghanistan as this is why conflicts and tensions commonly arise.
Have any of these ethnicities been involved in any conflicts or wars?
Yes, the Taliban are a Pashtun movement made up of Sunni Islamic fundamentalists pushing their political movement in Afghanistan. These Pashtun are constantly waging wars with the ethnic groups of the Tajik, Hazara, and Uzbek. These groups are always fighting over who should have control over Afghanistan, and their battles are very, very costly. For example, by the end of their civil war in 1989, 1,000 of the Mujahideen, or people engaged in a jihad or holy war, had been killed, whilst over 12,000 civilians immigrated from Kabul. Tensions and conflicts among these groups have been present ever since 1989 when the Soviets pulled out of Afghanistan following the end of the Soviet-Afghan War.
Does this conflict have to do with race?
So far, no. This country's ethnic disputes do not revolve around race as much as it does politics and religion. Certain groups disagree with what other groups have said and set in stone for laws and for plans of change, as well as who should control the country of Afghanistan itself. This is true as there is not a whole lot to disagree upon, as most people in the country of Afghanistan are part of the white race.
Why do women in Afghanistan participate less in the daily life of the country?
When the Taliban seized the country, they took away many freedoms granted to women in the previous decade, increasing the inequality between males and females in the country. Although the Taliban are no longer in charge of Afghanistan, the lasting impact they created during their time in power severely impacted the fight for equality between men and women in the country. Under their rule, a taboo was created limiting women from most public spaces, decreasing employment opportunities, but they were granted the opportunity to run businesses out of their houses. The Afghan government since has made many efforts to increase inequality between genders, even reserving government positions only for women. Many women have resumed work in their previous fields, such as teaching, medicine, law.
Is there any reason as to why a large discrepancy exists between the number of women employed as compared to men?
There are many factors of influence over the employment of women in the country. One of the largest is the limited amount of schooling provided to many women in their early years, and that poses a great disadvantage to them as they have almost half the amount of schooling years as men. The low literacy rate of women within the country is due in part to the short schooling time. Literacy is a boost in earning jobs with very few women able to read as compared to men. This will give men the upper hand in economic opportunities and prevent women many chances of employment. Other factors such as the number of children a woman has and the support of others and physical disadvantages can all prevent women from employment.
Do the official languages of Afghanistan cause for any issues in communicating?
No, although Afghanistan is a multilingual state, the two official languages are spoken by a large majority of the population in Afghanistan, not creating many issues with communication. Many people in the country are bilingual and they normally speak the main language of their ethnic group or region, and at least one of the two official languages, allowing for most people to understand government documents. This means that the government can easily communicate with most of its citizens without much confusion or misinterpretation.
How did Islam spread so fast?
First off, what do Muslims even believe? Muslims believe that there is one God, and God created humans to be righteous. Muslims are messengers and prophets of God. They will share what God has to say through the Quran, which is the scripture of Allah. The best way to honor God is to follow his plans. Muhammad was a key player in the spread of Islam. He began teaching in Mecca. It appealed to both men and women, causing others to be open to a religion that treats both sides right. The word got around about Muhammad teaching Islam. More and more people wanted to hear the word, so he taught publicly at Arab markets, using the Quran to help hear what scripture has to say. Since Islam appeared to both men and women, more people converted, allowing the word to spread. Muhammad also had disciples, meaning they go to different towns to share the religion. Again, since it appealed to both men and women, more people would share the word about it, and through the disciples, they went to more towns, which allowed them to share the word, converting more and more countries.
What happened with the war in Syria between the Islamic State and the Shia Hazara?
The Islamic State, also known as ISIS, recently threatened the Shia Hazara minority in Afghanistan with attacks in retaliation for fighting in Syria. Tensions rose in Afghanistan due to the government's inability to provide security for its citizens. Two suicide attacks left at least 80 dead and hundreds injured in a peaceful demonstration held by the Hazara minority. ISIS claimed responsible for these attacks. Demonstrators were protesting peacefully against the changes in government development project that they felt would affect them. The Islamic State and former Taliban members who joined ISIS have conducted several bloody attacks against the Hazara minority over the last 2 years in likely efforts to investigate a religious or ethnic war in Afghanistan. There are still tensions between the Islamic State and Syria today.
How has Islam impacted Afghanistan?
The non-Muslim minority group, like Christians and Hindus, were targeted for discrimination. This caused many cases of harassment, occasional violence, and inflammatory public statements made. The lack of government responses and protection for those groups led to the Declaration of Religious Freedoms. This is not just in Muslim people. Since 80% of the Muslims are Sunni, the Shiite community also faced discrimination. This caused it harder to get a job with the government and as well as harassment during celebrations. Now, most local Christians or Hindus do not state their beliefs or gatherings. Despite the constitutional efforts, the lack of tradition of judicial review allowed this behavior to continue. Later, the government officials considered all citizens to be Muslims by default. In practice, non-Muslims can be married as long as they not publicly acknowledge their non-Muslims' belief. With little diversity and little support from the government and continuous arguing between the people on what will happen to those who are not Muslims, Afghanistan remained a dominant Islam religion for many years to come.
What are the effects of globalization on a language?
There are some impacts globalization has on languages. These such things are that it can change the sounds and pronunciation of the language. It can change the vocabulary as well as the meanings of words. But globalization can also lead to the destruction of certain languages. This is why some cultures become angry when they are pressured by globalizing because they don't want their uniqueness to be diffused across the world.
Do the official languages of Afghanistan cause for any issues in communicating with a larger group in the country?
No, although Afghanistan is a multilingual state, the two official languages are spoken by a large majority of the population in Afghanistan, not creating many issues with communication. Many people in the country are bilingual and they normally speak the main language of their ethnic group or region, and at least one of the two official languages, allowing for most people to understand government documents. This means that the government can easily communicate with most of its citizens without much confusion or misinterpretation.
What is the official language in Afghanistan and what is most used?
The most spoken language in Afghanistan is Afghan, Persian, Dar, Pashto, and Uzbek, with the official language of Afghan, Persian, Dar, Pashto. Yes, these are the most common languages in Afghanistan.